Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership Forum, a space where you will hear perspectives from global industry executives on human ingenuity and how they catalyzed it to unlock value and realize their organization's true potential. We will keep it real. We will hear what's worked well and learnings from instances where things could have worked better. I'm your host, Copella, partner at SpyderWorks and explorer. Say hi to the future, the fast-growing community highlighting the human side of ingenuity. Our guest today is Michael Copella, market leader and senior managing director, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Pittsburgh region at CBRE. In this role, he's responsible for the strategic direction and performance of the company's advisory services business lines. In addition, he has led CBRE's Columbus office for almost a decade. Michael serves on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity Mid-Ohio and previously served on the boards of the Columbus chapter of the YPO, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, and Columbus Realtors. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for taking time out from your well-built schedule. Michael, let's let our listeners hear in your voice how you may wish to introduce yourself to them.
Yeah, so just Mike Copella. I like to consider myself a leader that loves to support and help people grow. So I like that better than official title.
All right, fair enough. Love to see people grow, and that's common in our philosophy as well. So thank you, Michael. There's quite a bit of buzz around commercial real estate these days for two underlying factors coming together. One being the return to office conundrum and the debate that's going around there, and the second is interest rates. So in your view, what's the current situation? What's your outlook? How are you thinking of tackling it?
So I will say that what's a struggle for me is that I'm an impatient person and real estate is very slow moving. And this is definitely something when we talk about the return to office that's going to be playing out over, 5-10 years, which is frustrating for me because I wish, we had a direction picked and we really knew what people were going to do around return to the office. And so I will say that in my role and the data that's shared with us by our clients, both on the landlord side and on the occupier side, is that there still is a lot of confusion around what makes the most amount of sense for the way that people want to be supported and the way that they want to work. We certainly see some companies that have a plan and they're starting to deploy that plan. And we're also seeing some companies that have just started that plan. And one of the hard things for us as consultants is that often these companies are coming to us and asking us for a playbook of what should they do. And unfortunately, really what they need to do is they need to unpack their own values and things that are important to them and to their people for them to create their own plan. And often they're really kind of taken aback by that. That sounds like a lot of effort, maybe a little bit too much time, a little bit too much money for them to really think through what they need to do versus just copying somebody else's plan. So when we think about what that future looks like as far as like return to office, I will say that small business certainly really never went away from being in the office. What we see are the larger corporations are the ones that are probably struggling the most with what to do and how to come back to the office. And we've seen a wide variety of going full remote to an enforced hybrid schedule to fully being back in the office. In Columbus, I think we're seeing a little bit of a mix of all of that. Though as of this fall, we are seeing, activity pick up, more leases being signed, and more companies announcing a more defined come back to the office policy. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. And I do think one of the things that is helping that policy come into play is the fact that, many feel like we are in some form of economic downturn. And so, the leaders that I talk to that are hiring people and running organizations do feel like that the talent market has changed. And so because of that, they do feel a little bit stronger in their ability to ask for some of those mandates or push people to come back to the office because they think that the labor market has shifted a little bit more in their favor.
It shifted a little bit more in the favor. Okay. All right. Understand. And do interest rates play into this at all?
So interest rates play into all of this. And I think what we're seeing is that interest rates are really likely impacting negatively the return to office. Mostly because interest rates are showing up in all different aspects of real estate. And it could be that, the occupier who was thinking about opening up a new facility or renovating their office now can look at that and really be too expensive to do because of the cost to go borrow for all of that capital. And so in addition to owners of real estate struggling with escalating interest rates and those borrowing costs, I think we're actually seeing it more showing up on the occupier side. They're having a very difficult time to doing long-term strategic planning when interest rates continue to change. I would say that from my perspective, it's not necessarily that the interest rates are high, it's the fact that the interest rates have changed so quickly over such a short period of time. A lot of the corporations that we deal with, they do long-term strategic planning, and that board goes crazy when that interest rate goes up by a couple points over a couple periods of, over a couple months, because now the budget is blown and they have to go back and put another plan together. This interest rate environment is very, very challenging for real estate in so many aspects. It is impacting the investment side. It's impacting the ability to refinance. As I said, it's impacting our occupiers in the way they do the strategic planning. And for us, what we would hope for is that there will be some stability to the interest rate environment in 2024. If we can get some stability to the interest rate environment, we do think that that will provide opportunity for both occupiers to get back into the market and start to continue to take space, and for investors to realize, what the floor and ceiling is for going out and acquiring investment real estate.
Extremely helpful. So, Michael, take us through the CBRE's role in real estate, and what does it do as an organization, and how do you service your clients?
Sure. So, in most instances, CBRE is not the owner of the real estate. So we do have a development entity, but that's a very small portion of what our overall scope of services are. So in all reality, we are a consultant that's either working with the owner/investor of a property to try to reposition that, to lease it, to sell it, or working with the occupier, which really is a fancy name for a tenant. And in that instance, we're advising them, what to do with their facility, be it to lease a new facility, to renew a lease, to build something new, to relocate across the country. We handle all of those types of situations. And what we do that's a little bit different than everybody else is that our scale, being the largest in the world, allows us to bring services, professionals, resources, and solve really complex problems, which COVID has really brought. And I think the one thing that's been very interesting for us is that, while commercial real estate is certainly in the headlines as being impacted by COVID and interest rates and what it has created for us is tremendous opportunity, because real estate is in the boardroom like no ever before. And if you think about it, all real estate was touched by COVID, be it retail or industrial, because you needed to ship more to your house, or office, should you be working from home or in the office. So for us, it's been a tremendous opportunity to get to know our clients on a deeper level and help them solve really some of the most complex problems some of these businesses have ever faced as it relates to the real estate.
Michael, it's a common saying: never waste a crisis, right? And in specifically in the space in which you function, it seems that as many more challenges come for the real estate market, CBRE's role becomes so much more pivotal. And how you address those is going to be great. What are some of the solution areas or challenge areas that you're addressing these days?
So I think that the first and foremost was really kind of portfolio optimization from our larger occupiers of real estate. And this does really kind of play into this RTO question, because what we saw prior to COVID was that companies really had more space than they needed, and they really weren't using their space as strategically as they could be. And I will say that is for both office, retail, and industrial. And so we've really been able to help companies optimize their real estate through data collection and strategy. And sometimes that could be, moving from, 3 facilities down to 2, or 15 down to 10, or creating an expansion strategy for some of our industrial clients to better enhance their distribution network. So because we've gotten a lot closer to our clients and they've asked us to solve some of these more complex problems, we've been able to use, our insights and our people in a way that, we really probably weren't fully doing previously, because we weren't seeing the full scope of what the client's challenges were. Before, it was just really kind of a real estate issue. Now, when we're solving problems, it involves the CEO, the people team, finance, and typically the real estate director. So it's a more comprehensive strategy for real estate than we probably saw, 5 or 10 years ago, and certainly before COVID.
Is it fair to say, Michael, that there was a time where real estate was all about square feet, and now it's all about culture?
Absolutely, and I do think that that is a very interesting piece that we have seen play out in both industrial and in office. And so it played out in office first as an opportunity to retain and attract talent, and you certainly saw it with the large tech companies on the coast. And then that kind of infiltrated up really all of the markets where employers wanted to be seen as the employer of choice. And part of that was a really dynamic space that people wanted to come in and work at. And then that even trickled into industrial buildings where, they were experiencing very, very high turnover and a lower wage, a tough job environment. And so you saw enhancements in break rooms and services and things that were done to really make sure that the experience of the person at work was much better and potentially better than the competitor down the street. I still believe that that's going to be really important on the go forward. I don't think that employees are going to, go back to what space was 20 years ago, where it was not an engaging experience. I do think employers are going to be offering, hybrid and remote strategies in addition to having really great space. So it kind of becomes the platform of what they offer their employee is this kind of option of choice. And one of those choices being a really dynamic place to work.
And are you, so I'm just curious, like this is such a fascinating area, Michael. What sort of resources do you bring to bear? I mean, I'm sure there are research people, insight people that are going out, getting data, getting some feel from employees, etc. Tell us a bit more about that.
So we definitely have data and we have insights around what the largest companies in the world are doing in regard to their own space. But typically what we do is we challenge the occupiers to do a study of what's important to themselves. And so much of it was based on, where are they located? What are their, kind of cultural beliefs? What industry are they in? Do their employees have a long commute? There's a huge difference to somebody that has an hour and 20-minute commute to somebody that's here in Columbus that may only have a 15-minute commute. So really understanding your people first. And so we help with, drive time, and really we help our clients get to know their own people and then start thinking about, what is going to be important for them as they plan for what their real estate strategy is going to be on the go forward. And it's not so much design. I think design is really important. It's how they're integrating all of the things that make their company special and different into that space. So that could be technology, that could be the way that they're bringing their culture into it through, the arts and the colors that they're choosing, to the type of seating style that they're using. So design plays a component in it, but it's really what we do to kind of bring all of the different pieces, all of the different data points together to help them create a space and a strategy for that space that's going to support what they want to accomplish. And I will tell you, I think that one of the bigger challenges is that, everything is changing very quickly. And the biggest struggle that in my mind that real estate has had is that it has a really difficult time keeping up with the pace of change. So we spend a lot of time with our clients thinking about what is the future going to look like? Because when you're redesigning space or building a building, it's a very expensive exercise. And so we have to be very thoughtful about not only what do they need today, but what we think they're going to need 5 and 10 years down the road.
So your impatience and the landscape are in sync, but not the industry. But not the industry.
Exactly.
All right. So are there areas that you're working on that are aiming to change the industry?
Well, I mean, I think aiming to change the industry, I would say that I look at that for how we treat our own people and how we want to grow CBRE. And so my vision for all of the offices in my region is to be that employer of choice, to have not only great resources, but great people. And one of the things that I think, if you look at our industry, it has been an industry that has been somewhat resistant to change. We don't necessarily adopt technology. It's a very kind of fractured industry that's also not very diverse. And for me, I'm very focused on, building an atmosphere and an experience for all of our people, including our sales professionals down to administrative support, that they really want to feel like they're part of something and that they're drawn to work here. And so that's something that I feel like we've done a great job in Columbus. And now we're working on expanding that kind of vision out to the rest of my region to really be an employer of choice compared to the rest of our competition.
And with a team of about 750 people that are working with you, I can assure you, like that must be a job and a half just by itself. So kudos to you for leading that charge. We're gonna shift the conversation a bit and get to, as a leader now, as the person responsible for those 750 people across a region, which is not just Ohio, but Michigan and Kentucky and Pittsburgh, and so I'd love to get your leadership take on Ingenuity, and more important, the human side of Ingenuity as it relates to you, your organization's success. Give me what your take is, and when has it worked well? But also, please do, share an example where it has not worked, but what have you learned from it?
So what I would say is that this is a very creative industry. And so we're in a deal making industry and we're dealing really specifically with people. We don't make anything. And so we have the benefit of working, what I would say, with a group of professionals that are highly creative and also very curious. And so I think you have to start with curiosity and you have to start with empathy to really understand how you're going to solve whatever problem that you're being tasked with. And so when I was thinking about this, I think one of the things that we do well, and I really look for in our leaders, is the ability to be curious, to bring empathy to situations, and to understand that we are in a constantly changing environment. And so agility and the ability to change and to think forward is super important. And so on any given day, I would tell you that we have to bring that curiosity and empathy and ability to change for almost every single problem that we're solved at. And one of the things that I like about working at a large global organization is that we have lots of resources. And often people think that because we're so large, we are bureaucratic. But what I challenge those is that we get exposed to more best practices and more best thinking than anybody. So the folks that really can absorb all that information and use those past decisions that either went well or went wrong and bring those to the table are often the ones that are the most successful within our organization. And I also like to know the box that I'm working with inside, and then figuring out how I can kind of bend those rules to get the outcome that we want to make something happen.
That is such a great response, and it's in just how we're having this conversation. It does look like you're having a lot of fun every single day.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
All right. Is there a time where a certain ingenuity that you thought would have been a great solution, but that didn't quite work well, and did you learn anything from it?
Yeah, so I learn all the time, and I think one of the things that I think about is that leading through other leaders is something that has been new to me and something that I've done in the last couple of years now that I'm more of in a regional role. And so finding a way to be supportive, but not necessarily intrusive into those markets that I'm not in every single day has definitely been a learning curve for me, because I like to get in, I like to know the details, I like to make an impact. And so for me, I think some early mistakes that I made was not giving, my leadership team enough space and not necessarily giving them the autonomy to go do the things that they needed to go do. And so that took some time, some feedback, and some really just some self-awareness when we weren't getting the outcomes that we needed for me to adjust my leadership style. And not that we were micromanaging, it's just that I wasn't doing a good enough job to cast a vision and then give them the tools and support they needed to go, get whatever they needed to get done.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Michael. Michael, and you've had an amazing career, right? And you've been with CBRE for a while. Let's get a bit provocative. If you had to retrace your steps, would you make the same choices that you have, or would you have gone in different directions?
Yeah, so I'm still surprised that I'm here. So I'm happy with all the decisions that I made. And I often get asked, how I ended up in this seat. And what I do share is that it was a lot of just small positive decisions that turned into medium positive outcomes that turned into bigger things. And so for me, I just look at where I'm at and I feel very lucky to be talking here with you and having the opportunity to work at CBRE and work with all of these folks. When I think about mistakes that I made, there, I think there's certainly things that I wish I would have done better. Definitely did not take school very seriously, and I also had a very difficult time figuring out what I wanted to go do afterwards. And not that that would have changed my outcome, but I do think spending more time earlier on meeting with other business leaders or people that were in, accounting and were, lawyers and other, just to get a sense for what their job looked like, I do think potentially would have helped excel my development early on because I just didn't know what those opportunities were out there to be successful.
But you know what, Michael? Just it's so heartening to see somebody who has had such a great success in his career, and yet is so vulnerable and self-aware. That's a great quality, Mike. Keep that going. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Um, Michael, tell me something. So, you come across many leaders across. You were part of the YPO, and you've been on boards, and at the same time with your clients, you come across different leaders that are out there. Do you have any advice for other leaders that are out there?
I would say that I do feel lucky that most of the leaders that I work with are very focused on their people. It's the ones that are not as focused on their people or the ones that typically, I don't necessarily want to spend as much time with. And to me, it's all about the people. And as a leader, it's our job to support, develop our people and do everything that we can to make them successful. So it's really when I see a leader that is not as focused on their people, that's for me the stuff that, gets me frustrated or gets me maybe a little worked up.
All right, no, completely understand. And are you looking forward to October 26th in Columbus?
I am. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a dynamic panel. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a whole day that's been set up really nicely. Michael, we are about running out of time. This has been a great conversation, but before we start to get towards the wrap up, um, was there a thought or an idea that you came into this conversation that, in the way I've asked the questions, that I never even touched on, you'd like to share with our audience?
So for me, and I think does play into this RTO conversation, and I probably sound like an old man when I say this, but I look at the future as being only more challenging and only constantly changing. And I am concerned that it seems to me that there is a group of people that is choosing to not build the relationships and not put themselves in a position to further develop themselves for what that future looks like. One of the things that I really try to do with our people here is to put them in a position where they are constantly being developed and challenged, and they build relationships with other people either here at CBRE in their community that will help make them successful. This idea that folks will work their entire life at home is like something that really sits on my mind. And it also bothers me because I think that I go back to some of the challenges right after George Floyd was murdered. And I think about diversity and what would happen if we were all just working in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods, and more than likely being with people that just looked and act like we do. I think there's a missed opportunity for us not to be gathering together to do work because we're bringing together people of different views, different social economic backgrounds. And I'm very troubled with this idea that we would all just work in our kitchens for the rest of our lives and what that would do with our perspectives. I just don't know how we would be able to see the other side if we're not around other people. So for me, I would always challenge people. You don't necessarily need to work in an office, but you need to find a way to constantly develop yourself and making sure that you're building diverse groups of relationships to help you succeed in the future.
Michael, I have heard so many different perspectives with so many different guests that we've had on the show, or even in the work that we do as part of Say Hi to the Future. Um, I don't think I had necessarily heard it the way you just said it, which is return to office is also a way of having these diverse collisions between people. So mostly it is about, hey, ideas being shared and teamwork and all that sort of stuff. But oh my God, like, I don't know if I quite clued into, yes, generally we all within our homes or within our respective neighborhoods have like-minded or like-viewed people. Workplace was one of those places where you came across people that thought differently or wanted to do things differently. So what a great insight in there. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you once again for taking time out and sharing your insights. Our listeners would love to hear more from you. We are looking forward to having you be with us in Columbus as a panel member, as a panelist for the Say Hi to the Future Columbus Heartbeat session. We will definitely tag you and CBRE on our show notes. But I wanted to thank you again and you taking the time out.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's my pleasure.
The Say Hi to the Future podcast series is produced by Sonia Romero, edited by Matt Miller, and special effects by Edward Vasquez. Please leave us your thoughts and let us know if there's a guest you want us to have a conversation with. You can find all Say Hi to the Future podcast series on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.